The shuttle moved through space quietly. Inside, Kang Dae-won sat near the window looking at the stars. On his lap, a small gray cat slept peacefully. Her name was Koma, which meant little one in his language. She had been with him for 5 years now. Dae-won could not imagine going anywhere without her. Today was special. Dae-won was going to Stellar Academy, a famous school in space where students from many planets studied together. He would be the first human student there. His heart beat faster with excitement and worry. Everything would be different now. New friends, new teachers, new everything. At least he had Kokoma with him. The shuttle stopped at the large space station. Dae-won picked up Koma's carrier carefully. She meowed softly inside. He spoke to her gently in Korean, telling her everything would be fine. The doors opened and he walked into the station. The customs area was bright and clean. A small creature stood behind the desk. It looked like a hedgehog but was the size of a child. Its quills moved as it breathed. This was Dae-won's first time seeing an alien in person. He tried not to stare. The alien spoke in a high voice. A translator made the words sound like Korean in Dae-won's ear. The creature asked for his papers. Dae-won handed them over with a smile. Everything was going smoothly. Then the alien looked at one paper and froze. "Live animal," the paper said. The alien's quills stood up straight. Its small eyes grew wide. It pressed a button on the desk. Loud alarms began ringing through the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. Dae-won jumped in surprise. What was happening? Guards ran into the room. They wore protective suits and carried strange weapons. They pointed these weapons at Koma's carrier. The alien behind the desk was shaking. It pointed at the carrier and shouted words that the translator could not handle properly. Dae-won heard the word predator repeated many times. Dae-won raised his hand slowly. He did not understand what was wrong. Koma was just a cat. She was small and gentle. Why were these aliens so scared? One guard stepped forward and spoke carefully. The translator made his words clear. No predators allowed on this station. This was the law. The cat must leave immediately. Dae-won tried to explain. Koma was not dangerous. She was his support animal. She helped him feel calm. The papers said she could come with him. Everything was approved by Earth officials. But the guards did not listen. They kept their weapons pointed at the carrier. The small alien behind the desk looked like it might faint from fear. Someone new entered the room. She was tall and had kind eyes. She was human. Dae-won felt relief wash over him. The woman introduced herself as Dr. Park Ji-won. She was a teacher at the academy and worked with alien species. She spoke to the guards in their own language. They lowered their weapons slowly but did not look happy. Dr. Park turned to Dae-won. She explained the situation quickly. The Galactic Concordance banned all predators from their space 3,000 years ago. Every member species was either herbivore or gentle omnivore. They killed all predators on their homeworlds or locked them away. To these aliens, predators meant death and terror. They could not understand why humans kept them as pets. Dae-won felt confused and angry. Koma was not a monster. She was his friend. How could an entire galaxy be afraid of house cats? Dr. Park saw his frustration. She put a hand on his shoulder. She knew this was unfair, but they needed to follow the process. There would be a meeting. The academy leaders would decide if Koma could stay. They took Dae-won and Koma to a waiting room. Guards stood outside the door. Inside, Dae-won let Koma out of her carrier. She stretched and looked around with curious green eyes. She jumped onto his lap and started purring. The sound made him feel better. He stroked her soft fur and whispered that everything would be okay. He hoped he was right. Hours passed. Finally, Dr. Park returned. The meeting was ready. They walked through long hallways. Aliens stared at them as they passed. Some pressed themselves against the walls. Others pointed and whispered. Dae-won kept Koma in her carrier now. He did not want to scare anyone more. The meeting room was large. 7 aliens sat at a curved table. They represented different species. There was the seal-like creature who was the dean, a being made of moving crystal, a tall thing with 4 arms and a trunk like an elephant. Others Dae-won could not identify. All of them looked nervous. Some would not even look at the carrier. The dean spoke first. His voice was formal and cold. He said that predators violated station rules. Dae-won's presence was welcome, but the cat must go. Dr. Park argued back. She explained that Earth officials had approved this. Humans and cats lived together for thousands of years. Taking Kokoma away would hurt Daewon's studies and health. One of the alien professors asked to see the predator. Daewon hesitated but agreed. He opened the carrier door. Koma stepped out onto the table. She sat down and looked at the aliens calmly. Her tail moved slowly from side to side. 3 of the professors fell from their chairs. The crystal being made a sound like breaking glass. The elephant creature trumpeted in alarm. Only the dean stayed in his seat, though his flippers shook. Kakoma tilted her head, confused by the reaction. She meowed softly. The sound made several aliens gasp. Daewon quickly picked up Kakoma. He held her gently and spoke to the council. He explained what cats were. Yes, they were predators, but they chose to live with humans 10,000 years ago. They hunted mice and rats that ate human food. In return, humans gave them shelter and care. Over time, cats became family members. They were not wild animals anymore. They were friends. The crystal professor asked how humans could trust a predator. Daewon thought carefully before answering. Trust went both ways, he said. Kakoma trusted him to feed her and keep her safe. He trusted her not to hurt him. She could scratch or bite if she wanted. Her teeth were sharp and her claws were real. But she never used them on him. That was the bond they shared. The dean looked troubled. He said this was unprecedented. No prey species in the Concordance lived willingly with predators. It seemed impossible. It seemed wrong. But humans were new members. Perhaps their ways were just very different. He called for a vote. Should they make an exception? The vote took a long time. Professors argued back and forth. Some said rules existed for good reasons. Others said they should respect human culture. Dr. Park added that refusing Koma might damage relations with Earth. Humans would not understand why their companions were banned. Finally, the dean raised his flipper for silence. They would allow a trial period. Koma could stay for 1 semester, but there were conditions. She must be contained when Daewon was not present. She could not roam the station freely. Any aggressive behavior would end the trial immediately. Daewon would be responsible for any problems she caused. Did he agree to these terms? Daewon agreed quickly. It was not perfect, but it was a chance. He thanked the council deeply. The dean did not smile. He looked at Koma one more time with something like fear in his eyes. Then he dismissed the meeting. Dr. Park led Daewon to his room. On the way, she warned him quietly. Many students would be afraid. He needed to be patient and careful. One mistake and Koma would be sent away. Daewon understood. This was going to be harder than he thought. His roommate was already in the room. The creature looked like a large moth with colorful wings and many eyes. It introduced itself as Vrillix. When Vrillix saw Koma, its wings began fluttering in panic. It flew up to the ceiling and clung there, refusing to come down. Daewon sighed. This semester was going to be very long. He set up Kakoma's area on his side of the room with a clear barrier. Kakoma explored her new space, unbothered by the terrified alien above. She found a comfortable spot and curled up to sleep. She started purring, the sound filling the quiet room. From the ceiling, Vrillix watched the small predator with all its compound eyes. It did not understand how the human could sleep so peacefully next to such a creature. It did not understand humans at all. This was going to be a very strange semester indeed. Daewon lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Through the window, stars glittered in the darkness. They were far from Earth now, far from everything familiar, but Koma's purring reminded him of home. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. That was all that mattered. 3 weeks had passed since Daewon arrived at Stellar Academy. Life had settled into a strange routine. He attended classes during the day while Koma stayed in their room behind her barrier. In the evenings, he would return to find Vrillix still clinging to the ceiling, watching the cat with nervous fascination. Most students avoided Daewon in the hallways. They knew about his roommate, the predator. Some whispered as he passed. Others simply moved away quickly. He tried not to let it bother him, but loneliness was hard. Dr. Park had warned him this would happen. Change took time. One afternoon, Daewon sat in the common area studying. Kakoma was with him in her carrier since he could not leave her alone in the room. A few brave students had started sitting at nearby tables, keeping their distance but no longer running away. Progress was slow but real. Then a small maintenance robot rolled across the floor. Its wheel caught on something and broke. The robot started moving in quick, jerky patterns, making squeaking sounds. It skittered back and forth like a frightened mouse. Inside her carrier, Coma woke up instantly. Her whole body changed. Her pupils grew wide and dark. Her ears pointed forward. Her muscles tensed. She focused completely on the moving robot. This was the hunting stance. Day One had seen it 1,000 times when she played with toys at home. The students around them noticed. They saw the predator watching, ready to strike. Several of them stood up quickly. One made a sound of alarm. But before panic could spread, Coma did something unexpected. She patted the carrier door with her paw and meowed. She wanted out. She wanted to play. Day One made a decision. He opened the carrier. Coma shot out like lightning. She crouched low, wiggled her back end and pounced. She caught the robot with both front paws. It stopped moving. She batted it around for a moment, then lost interest. Just like that, the hunt was over. She walked back to Day One and rubbed against his leg, purring. The common area was completely silent. Every alien student stared. They had just watched a predator hunt. But there was no blood. No killing. The cat had treated the robot like a toy. One student, a large creature with 4 arms and a trunk, spoke quietly. Its translator made the words clear. The predator was playing? Day One nodded. He explained that cats practiced hunting even when they were not hungry. It was instinct, yes, but also entertainment. Coma could tell the difference between a toy and real prey. She could control herself. The students looked confused but intrigued. This was different from everything they believed about predators. The 4-armed student introduced himself as Tornell. He was studying engineering. He had many questions about Earth and its animals. Could all predators be trained like this? How did humans survive with so many dangerous species? Day One answered as best he could. Soon other students joined the conversation. The ice was finally breaking. That night something changed in the room. Vrillix came down from the ceiling. He did not come close to Kakoma's area, but he sat at his own desk instead of hiding. It was a small step. Day One noticed and smiled. He did not comment on it. Some things were better left unspoken. Over the following days, Vrillix watched Kakoma more openly. He observed her sleeping with her belly exposed, completely vulnerable. He saw her groom herself carefully, spending hours on cleanliness. He noticed how she would sit by the barrier and watch Day One, her eyes soft and content. These were not the behaviors of a mindless killer. One evening, Vrillix asked his first question. Why did the cat sleep so much? Day One explained that cats slept 16 hours a day. They conserved energy between hunts. But Coma did not need to hunt anymore. She still slept because that was her nature. Vrillix found this fascinating. A predator that did not need to predate. What a strange concept. In Professor Wexra's biology class, the discussion turned to Earth ecosystems. The crystal professor showed images of African plains with lions and zebras. Many students looked away from the screen, uncomfortable with the predator images, but Professor Wexra insisted they watch. This was science, not horror. She explained how predators kept prey populations healthy. They caught the weak and sick animals first. This meant stronger animals survived to reproduce. Without predators, prey species overpopulated and starved. The system needed both sides to work. It was balance, not evil. A small student named Pip raised her quills in anger. She said this was propaganda. Predators were dangerous, period. The Concordance removed them for good reason. Why should they believe Earth had a better way? She looked at Day One with clear distrust. Day One did not get angry. He understood her fear. Instead, he invited Pip to observe Coma during feeding time. See for herself what predators really did. Pip refused at first, but Professor Wexra encouraged her. Scientific observation required facing uncomfortable truths. Reluctantly, Pip agreed. That evening, Pip came to Day One's room. She brought Tornell and 3 other students for safety. They stood far back while Day One prepared Coma's meal. It was processed food from Earth, meat and vegetables mixed together. Nothing bloody or violent. He placed it in Coma's bowl. Coma ate delicately, taking small bites. When she finished, she cleaned her face with her paw. Then she approached the barrier where the students watched. She sat down and looked at them curiously. Pip's quills rattled with nervousness, but she did not run. She stared back at the cat, searching for the monster she expected. All she saw was a small, clean animal. Tornell asked if he could touch the barrier. Day One said yes. The large alien extended one hand carefully. Coma stood and walked over. She sniffed the barrier where his hand pressed. Then she rubbed her cheek against it. marking the spot with her scent. Tornell made a sound of surprise. The predator was showing affection. The visits became regular. Several students started coming to the room in the evenings. They formed an informal study group, working on assignments while Kokoma slept or played nearby. Daewon answered their endless questions. Why did cats purr? How did whiskers work? What were claws made of? He became a teacher of Earth biology without meaning to. He showed them videos from Earth, puppies playing with children, horses carrying riders, dolphins swimming with humans. Each video showed predators or large animals living peacefully with people. The students were amazed and disturbed in equal measure. Their worldview was cracking. Late one night, Vrelix woke from a nightmare. In his dream, something hunted him through dark corridors. He could feel teeth at his back. He woke with his wings fluttering in panic, his heart racing. Then he felt weight on his sleeping platform. Koma sat there, somehow escaped from her enclosure. She looked at him with calm green eyes. This was the moment of death, surely. The predator had him trapped, but she did not attack. She just sat there purring. The sound was soft and rhythmic. Slowly, Vrelix's panic faded. The cat was not threatening him. She was comforting him. With a trembling wingtip, Vrelix reached out. He touched the top of Koma's head gently. Her purring grew louder. She leaned into his touch. In that moment, everything changed for Vrelix. This creature could kill him easily, but she chose not to. She chose kindness instead. How was that possible? In the morning, Daewon found them sleeping near each other. Kaikoma was curled up at the edge of Vrelix's platform. The moth-like alien had one wing draped close to her, not quite touching but no longer afraid. Daewon smiled and said nothing. He quietly fixed the enclosure door and made breakfast. At lunch that day, Pip sat at Daewon's table. This had never happened before. She told him she had been wrong. Not completely wrong, she clarified. Predators were still dangerous, but maybe they were not evil. Maybe they were just animals trying to survive like everyone else. It was a small admission, but it meant everything. Word spread through the academy. The human's predator had not hurt anyone. More than that, students were actually befriending it. The idea seemed impossible, but it was happening. Some faculty members grew concerned. Others grew curious. Dean Holvix received reports daily. He read them with growing unease. This situation was spiraling beyond his control, but for Daewon, these weeks felt like victory. He was no longer alone. He had friends now. Real friends who asked questions and listened to answers. Who sat with him despite their instincts screaming to run. Who were brave enough to challenge everything they had been taught. These students gave him hope. One evening, the whole study group was in his room. Tornell was explaining engineering concepts. Pip was arguing about biology with Vrelix. Another student was showing pictures of their homeworld. Keikoma walked between them all, weaving around legs and wings and trunks, purring constantly. She was happy. They were happy. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Daewon looked at his new friends and felt grateful. Change was happening. Slowly, carefully, but really happening. Maybe his presence here meant something after all. Maybe one small cat could help an entire galaxy see differently. The thought was almost too big to believe. But watching Pip gently touch Kokoma's head while discussing predator ethics, he thought maybe it was possible. Maybe anything was possible now. The video appeared on the Galactic Network without warning. Someone had recorded Koma playing with Daewon in the common area. The clip showed her jumping for a toy, doing flips in the air, then settling into his lap to purr. Within hours, billions of beings had watched it. The reaction was explosive. Some called it dangerous propaganda. How dare humans normalize predators? Others found themselves strangely drawn to the small creature. Comments flooded in from across the galaxy. Most were afraid or angry, but some expressed curiosity. A few even called the cat beautiful. The debate had gone from a single academy to the entire concordance. Dean Holvix called Daewon to his office. The seal-like administrator looked tired. He explained the situation carefully. Politicians from multiple worlds were demanding action. Some wanted Kokoma removed immediately. Others wanted all humans banned from concordant space. The pressure was intense, but there was also unexpected support. Several scientists had submitted papers about Earth ecology. They argued that the concordance misunderstood predators. Professor Wexra had written a detailed analysis of predator-prey balance. Her work was getting attention from academic circles. The debate was no longer emotional alone. Science was entering the discussion. Dr. Park visited Day One that evening with the news. She and the dean had been researching concordance history. They found something surprising in old archives. The predator ban was not based on science. It was based on trauma. 3,000 years ago, the founding species of the concordance fought a war against an aggressive predatory species called the Ravix. The war was brutal and devastating. When the concordance finally won, they made a collective decision. Never again would they allow predators in their space. They systematically removed all predatory species from their worlds. But the original document suggested this was meant to be temporary. A healing period after trauma. Somehow temporary became permanent. Generations passed and the policy became tradition. No one questioned it anymore. Until now. Day One felt the weight of history pressing down. Kaikoma represented something these species had feared for millennia. How could one person and one cat change such deep fear? Dr. Park touched his shoulder gently. He was not alone in this, she reminded him. Many people were starting to question the old ways. The Concordance Council summoned Day One for an official hearing. He would need to testify about humans and their relationship with predators. Commander Yu Tai-Yang arrived from Earth to support him. The commander was a serious man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought in conflicts and trained soldiers. His presence added military credibility to Day One's position. The day of the hearing arrived. The council chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. Cameras recorded everything. This would broadcast across the galaxy. Day One wore his best clothes. Koma sat calmly in her carrier beside him. She had no idea how important she had become. The council chairwoman was a bird-like creature named Marn. Her feathers were silver, and her eyes were intelligent. She spoke with authority. The council would hear arguments for and against allowing predators in concordance space. This decision would set policy for generations. Everyone must speak truthfully and completely. The opposition spoke first. A representative from a rabbit-like species described how predators destroyed her world's ecosystem before being removed. Another speaker talked about nightmares that still haunted his people, genetic memories of being hunted. A third showed images of Earth's extinct species, killed by human hunting. The evidence seemed damning. Then it was Day One's turn. His hands shook slightly as he stood. He opened Koma's carrier and lifted her out. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some representatives stood as if to flee, but Day One held Koma gently, showing she was calm and controlled. He began speaking. He explained the history of cat domestication. 10,000 years ago, wildcats came to human villages because mice lived there. Humans allowed them to stay because the cats controlled pests. Over time, cats evolved to communicate with humans. They developed meow specifically to talk to people. Adult cats do not meow at each other, only at humans. This was not slavery or control, Day One continued. This was partnership. Cats chose to live with humans. They could leave any time, but rarely did. Why? Because they were family now. He demonstrated simple commands: sit, stay, come. Koma obeyed each one, but these were not tricks forced through fear. They were communication between friends, a council member interrupted. If cats were so loyal, why did they obey? What stopped a predator from simply killing and eating prey? Day One smiled sadly. That was the question. Was it not? The answer was simple but hard to believe. Koma loved him. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She trusted him completely, and he trusted her. This was the bond between humans and their animal companions. Predators were capable of affection, loyalty, even sacrifice. They were not mindless killers. They were thinking, feeling beings who formed relationships. Commander Yu spoke next. He explained military strategy. Humans evolved alongside large predators: lions, tigers, bears, wolves. Humans learned to work with some, avoid others, and respect all of them. This made humans adaptable and resourceful. The concordant species eliminated their threats. Humans learned to coexist with threats. Which approach made a species stronger? Professor Wexra presented her research. She showed data on concordant species genetics. Without predatory pressure, these species had become less adaptable. Their immune systems were weaker. They struggled with new diseases. Removing predators created an artificial environment that made species fragile over time. She proposed a controversial idea: controlled reintroduction of small predators to certain ecosystems. Not the Ravix or other aggressive species, but Earth's domesticated animals could help restore balance. Dogs, cats, and ferrets under human supervision. It would be a scientific experiment with careful monitoring. The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members called this insane. Others found the scientific argument compelling. Marn called for order, her wings spreading wide. The debate continued for hours. Representatives from different worlds shared their fears and hopes. The galaxy was divided. Then Pip asked to speak. The small Quillian walked to the speaker's platform nervously. She identified herself as a student who initially protested the cat's presence. She described her fear and anger, but she also described what changed her mind. She had watched Kakoma spare an injured bird. A small bird had flown into a window and fell, stunned. Kakoma approached it curiously. Every instinct should have made her attack, but she just sniffed the bird and walked away. She chose not to hunt. That level of control required consciousness and choice. Predators were not robots programmed to kill. They could decide. Pip's testimony carried weight because she had been a skeptic. If she could change her mind, others could too. Several council members whispered among themselves. The mood in the chamber shifted slightly. Not acceptance yet, but consideration. Vrillix also testified. He described living with Coma for weeks. His initial terror. The gradual realization that she was not a threat. The night she comforted him after a nightmare. He said something that silenced the room. He was no longer afraid of predators. He was afraid of never learning the truth about them. The council took a recess to deliberate. Dewan sat in the waiting area with Coma. She had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted from the attention. She had no idea that the fate of Earth's relationship with the galaxy rested on her small shoulders. She just knew she was safe with her human. Hours passed. Finally, the council returned. Marn stood at the center of the platform. Her expression was unreadable. The chamber fell completely silent. She began to speak. The council had made their decision. It was not unanimous. Many still opposed any change, but a majority had voted in favor of a new approach. The blanket ban on predators would be lifted. New protocols would be established for introducing Earth's domesticated animals. Wild predators remained banned, but companion animals with proper handlers would be allowed. Each world could choose whether to participate. The concordance would sponsor research into predator behavior and ecological balance. The decision would be reviewed in 5 years. If problems arose, the policy would be reversed. But for now, the galaxy was willing to try something new. Marn looked directly at Dewan. She said his courage and patience had made this possible. She hoped he understood the responsibility he now carried. Dewan stood and bowed deeply. He did understand. This was just the beginning. Real change would take years, maybe generations. But the door had opened. That was enough for now. Outside the chamber, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions came from every direction. But Dewan just smiled and held Coma close. She blinked sleepily at all the noise, then yawned and went back to sleep. The galaxy had just transformed around her, and she did not care. She was with her human, and that was all that mattered to her. Sometimes, Dewan thought, the smallest creatures teach the biggest lessons. 2 months after the council decision, life at Stellar Academy had changed remarkably. Dewan walked through hallways without fear now. Students greeted him by name. Some even asked to see Coma. The terror had faded into curiosity and, for many, acceptance. But not everyone was happy with the changes. It was a normal Tuesday morning when the alarms sounded, not the security alarms from Dewan's first day. These were emergency alarms. The station's automated voice announced a crisis. Meteor strike in Section C. Hull breach. Power failure. All students must evacuate immediately. Students poured into the hallways in panic. Teachers tried to maintain order, directing everyone toward the escape pods. Dewan grabbed Kakoma and joined the evacuation. But as he reached the safe zone, he realized something terrible. Not everyone had made it out. Section C was where the advanced biology labs were located. A class had been in session when the meteor hit. 12 students were trapped inside with their professor. The doors had sealed automatically to prevent atmosphere loss. But the power was completely gone. No lights, no air circulation, no communication. Life support would last maybe 3 hours. Rescue teams assembled quickly. But they faced a major problem. The corridors leading to Section C were filled with debris. Twisted metal, broken equipment, and shattered wall panels blocked the paths. The station's sensors could not penetrate the wreckage. The rescue team could not see where they were going. Commander Yu studied the situation carefully. He had remained at the academy as a consultant after the hearing. Now his military experience became crucial. He looked at the wreckage maps and shook his head. Standard equipment would not work here. They needed something else, something that could navigate in complete darkness. His eyes turned to Koma. The cat sat calmly in Daewon's arms, watching the chaos with alert green eyes. Commander Yu approached them with a serious expression. He explained his idea. Cats evolved to hunt at night. They had excellent vision in darkness. They could sense space with their whiskers. They navigated by sound and smell as much as sight. Koma could find a path through the debris. Daewon felt cold fear wash through him. Send Koma into a dangerous situation? What if she got hurt? What if she got lost? But then he thought of the trapped students. One of them was Vrilix. His friend was in there, afraid and running out of air. Could he really refuse to help? Dean Holvix had to make the final decision. The seal-like administrator looked at the cat, then at the desperate rescue team, then back at the cat. Every instinct told him no. Sending a predator into a confined space with terrified prey was insane. But his logical mind said something different. This might be their only chance. He approved the mission with shaking flippers. Commander Yu immediately began preparations. He attached a small harness to Kokoma with a camera and location tracker. A thin, strong cord would connect her to Daewon. She could explore ahead while he followed carefully behind. The rescue team would come after them, using their path. Daewon knelt down and looked into Koma's eyes. He spoke to her in Korean, telling her she was a good cat, a brave cat. She had to help their friends now. Koma meowed and rubbed against his hand. She did not understand the words, but she felt his emotions. Something important was happening. They entered the damaged corridor. Darkness swallowed them immediately. Daewon's flashlight barely penetrated the thick dust in the air. But Koma moved forward confidently. Her pupils expanded until her eyes looked completely black. She could see what he could not. The camera on her harness sent images back to the command center. Everyone watched in tense silence. The small cat squeezed through gaps between fallen beams. She leaped over dangerous sharp metal. She paused at a fork in the corridor, testing the air with her nose, then chose the left path. She was navigating by senses humans did not have. Daewon followed as quickly as he could. The cord between them stayed taut but not tight. Koma would wait when he fell behind, patient until he caught up. Then she would move forward again. They were a team working together in the darkness. In the command center, Dean Holvix watched the camera feed with growing amazement. The predator was not hunting. She was rescuing. Every movement was purposeful and controlled. She avoided dangerous areas instinctively. This small creature possessed skills that no technology could match. After 30 minutes of careful progress, Koma stopped at a sealed door. This was it. Section C. Daewon called out through the door. A voice answered weakly. The professor. Everyone was alive but scared and running low on oxygen. They needed to open the door from the outside. Daewon had brought emergency tools. He worked on the manual release while Kakoma sat beside him, occasionally meowing encouragement. Finally, the door opened with a hiss. Air rushed in. The trapped students gasped in relief. Then they saw what had rescued them. In the dim light of Daewon's flashlight, 12 alien students stared at the small gray cat. Some of them whimpered in fear. Their ancient instincts screamed danger. But Vrilix spoke up from the back of the group. Trust her, he said. Trust the predator. She came to save us. Koma walked into the room. Students pressed against the walls, giving her space. But she did not threaten anyone. She simply moved to the center of the room and sat down. Then she looked back at Daewon and meowed. The meaning was clear. Follow me. I will lead you out. One by one, the students stood. They formed a line behind Daewon, who followed Koma. The professor came last, making sure no one was left behind. They moved through the darkness in single file. The small cat led them around dangers they could not see. Twice she stopped them before they walked into hazardous areas. She protected them. The journey back took longer with so many people, but Coma never rushed. She matched her pace to the slowest student. When someone stumbled, she would stop and wait. When someone cried out in fear, she would meow softly, as if reassuring them. The predator was guarding her prey. Finally, they emerged into the lit corridor where the rescue team waited. Cheers erupted. Medical staff rushed forward to check the students. Everyone was exhausted and dirty but alive. Not a single injury. The mission was a complete success. Coma walked to Daewon and sat at his feet. She was tired now. He picked her up and held her close. She had done something incredible. She had saved 12 lives using abilities that evolved for hunting. Those same traits that made her a predator had made her a hero. The camera footage spread across the galaxy faster than any news story before. Billions watched the small cat leading frightened aliens through darkness to safety. The image was powerful and undeniable. Predators could be protectors. Killing skills could become saving skills. Context mattered more than nature. The Concordance Council held an emergency session. The same representatives who had barely voted to allow companion animals now saw concrete proof of their value. Not theory or philosophy, but actual lives saved. The vote to continue the new policy was now overwhelming. Even opponents had to admit what they had witnessed. Dean Holvix visited Daewon that evening. The seal-like Dean looked different somehow. Less burdened. He admitted that he had been wrong. Not just about Coma, but about predators in general. Fear had made him and everyone else blind to possibilities. He thanked Daewon for his patience. More importantly, he apologized. That night, the study group gathered in Daewon's room as usual. But this time was different. Students who had been too afraid before now crowded in. They all wanted to meet the hero cat. Keikoma, completely unbothered by her fame, simply accepted the attention as her due. She allowed students to pet her gently, purring at the affection. Frilix sat closest to her. The moth-like alien had been the most terrified student in the beginning. Now he groomed his wings while Coma groomed her fur beside him. They had become true friends. Different species, predator and prey, but friends nonetheless. Tornell raised a cup of juice in a toast. To Coma, he said, the bravest predator in the galaxy. Everyone cheered. Coma looked up at the noise, blinked slowly, then went back to cleaning her paw. She had no idea she was famous. She just knew she had helped her human and his friends. That was what good cats did. Daewon watched his friends celebrating around his small cat. He thought about how far they had all come. Fear had transformed into respect. Prejudice had become understanding. And all because people were willing to look beyond their assumptions and see the truth. The crisis had proven something important. Predators were not the enemy. Ignorance was the enemy. Fear was the enemy. But those could be defeated with courage and patience. Coma had shown them the way. Now it was up to the rest of the galaxy to follow. And watching his friends laugh. Together, prey and predator in harmony, Daewon believed they would. Change was no longer coming. Change was here. 6 months had passed since the rescue. Stellar Academy looked different now. In the gardens, a golden retriever played with students who would have screamed in terror at the sight of any predator a year ago. In the library, a student studied with a ferret sleeping in her lap. Commander Yu's security office had adopted 3 cats who helped reduce stress among the guards. Change had arrived with surprising speed. Daewon walked through campus on his way to his final exam. Graduation was just 2 weeks away. His time at the academy was ending, but the impact would last forever. Students waved at him as he passed. A few stopped to pet Keikoma, who walked beside him without her carrier now. She was free to roam, trusted completely. The new xenobiology program was thriving. Professor Wexra taught classes specifically about predator behavior. Students from across the galaxy applied to learn about Earth's ecosystem. The most popular course was called Living with Predators, taught by Dr. Park. Every semester, the class filled within minutes of registration opening. 3 concordance worlds had begun controlled reintroduction programs. Small predators like cats and ferrets were being introduced to damaged ecosystems under careful supervision. Early results looked promising. Native prey species were becoming healthier. as weak individuals were naturally selected out. Plant life was recovering as prey populations stopped overgrazing. The balance was returning. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some worlds refused to participate at all. Conservative groups argued that the concordance was forgetting the lessons of history. Protests occasionally erupted on stations where Earth animals were introduced. But the opposition was shrinking. Results spoke louder than fear. Pip had become one of the strongest advocates for the program. The small Quillian who once demanded Coma's removal now studied conservation biology. She was writing a book about predator-prey relationships and how the concordance had misunderstood them for millennia. Publishers across multiple worlds wanted to print it. Her transformation inspired others who had been skeptical. Vrillix had changed too. The nervous moth-like alien now worked with new students who feared predators. He shared his own story of terror becoming friendship. He showed them it was possible to overcome instinct with understanding. Many students said his testimony helped them more than any lecture could. One afternoon, Dr. Park called Daewon to her office. She had news from Earth. The human government had received over 10,000 applications from alien students wanting to study there. They wanted to see a world where predators roamed free, where humans hiked through forests with bears and wolves nearby, where children grew up with dogs and cats as normal parts of life. Earth was preparing to welcome its first group of alien exchange students. They would need guides and teachers who understood both human and alien perspectives. Would Daewon be interested in such a position? He would return home but continue the work he started. Building bridges between species, Daewon accepted immediately. This was what he wanted. Not fame or recognition, but the chance to help others learn what he had learned. That different did not mean dangerous. That fear could be overcome. That predators and prey could share the same world peacefully. Graduation day arrived warm and bright. The ceremony was held in the main hall, decorated with flowers from a dozen worlds. Families attended through video links. Daewon's parents watched from Korea with tears in their eyes. Their son had done something remarkable. He had changed the galaxy with patience and a small cat. Vrillix gave the student speech. He talked about learning and growth, about confronting fear instead of fleeing from it. He spoke about his roommate, the human who never got angry despite being misunderstood. And he spoke about Kakoma, the predator who taught an entire galaxy that nature was more complex than they believed. When Daewon crossed the stage to receive his degree, the entire hall stood and applauded. Kakoma sat in the front row with Dr. Park watching calmly. She wore a small graduation cap that Pip had made for her. It kept sliding off her head, and she kept batting at it with her paw. Students laughed at her antics. The predator had become beloved. After the ceremony, Tornell presented Daewon with a gift. It was a sculpture of Koma made from a special metal from his homeworld. The artwork captured her perfectly, sitting with her tail curved around her feet, her eyes alert and intelligent. Tornell explained that this sculpture would stand in the Academy's main lobby. Future students would see it and remember what was possible. That evening there was a party. Students from every species gathered to celebrate. Music played, food from countless worlds was shared, and laughter filled the air. Koma moved through the crowd like a small gray diplomat, accepting treats and pets from everyone. She purred constantly, happy with all the attention. Dean Hulvix approached Daewon near the end of the party. The seal-like administrator looked thoughtful. He said something that surprised Daewon. The Academy was establishing a new award in Koma's name. The Koma Prize for Interspecies Understanding would go to students who helped break down barriers between different kinds of beings. It would remind everyone of what one small cat had accomplished. Daewon felt emotion well up in his throat. Kakoma would be remembered, not as a pet or a predator, but as a bridge between worlds. She had no idea, of course. She was currently trying to steal food from Tornell's plate. Some things never changed. The day of departure came too quickly. Daewon packed his belongings while Koma supervised from the bed. Vrillix helped, though his wings drooped sadly. They had become true friends over the semester. The moth-like alien admitted he would miss both Daewon and Kakoma. The room would feel empty without them. At the shuttle dock, dozens of students gathered to say goodbye. They brought gifts and flowers and handmade cards. Pip gave Koma a toy mouse she had sewn herself. Tornell presented a datapad loaded with messages from students who wanted to thank them. Professor Wexra offered a formal Silithian blessing for safe travels. Dr. Park hugged Daewon tightly. She whispered that he had been the perfect choice for this mission. Not because he was the smartest or the strongest, but because he was kind and patient. Those qualities mattered more than any others when building peace. Commander Yu shook his hand firmly. The military man smiled, something he rarely did. He said Earth was proud. Day One had represented humanity well. He had shown the galaxy what humans believed in: cooperation, understanding, and the courage to be different. Day One boarded the shuttle with Kokoma in his arms. Through the window, he watched Stellar Academy grow smaller. The space station that had once seemed so hostile now felt like a second home. He had learned and grown there. He had made friends he would keep forever. And he had helped start a revolution without firing a single shot. As the shuttle jumped to faster-than-light travel, Day One looked at Koma. She had curled up in his lap, purring softly. She looked like any ordinary house cat, small, soft, content. But she was so much more than that. She was proof that predators could be partners, that fear could become love, that the universe was bigger and stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. 10 years later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Earth animals served as ambassadors across hundreds of worlds. Mixed species research teams studied predator behavior and ecosystem health. The concordance had grown stronger and more diverse. Fear was fading, replaced by curiosity and respect. Koma had lived a long, happy life. When she passed away at 17 years old, beings from across the galaxy mourned. She was buried on Earth with honors usually reserved for heroes, because that was what she was. A small gray cat who changed everything, but her legacy lived on. Her great-great-grandchildren were spread across the stars now, each one a small ambassador for peace. One of them, a gray tabby named Koma II, was preparing to travel to a new space station with her human companion. The cycle continued. On a distant world, a young Keltorian student saw a cat for the first time. Ancient instincts made his wings flutter with fear, but he remembered the stories his parent had told him. About Vrillix, who befriended a predator, about Koma, who saved lives in the darkness, about how the bravest thing was not to fight your fear, but to face it. The young Keltorian took a deep breath. Then he reached out slowly and touched the cat's head. She purred and leaned into his touch. And in that moment, another barrier fell. Another bridge was built. The work Day One and Koma started would never truly end. It would just grow, spreading across the galaxy one small act of courage at a time. Back on Earth, Day One watched the news reports about the latest predator reintroduction program. He was old now, his hair gray, but his eyes were still bright. He thought about that nervous young man who brought his cat to space school and accidentally started a revolution. He smiled at the memory. His own cat, a descendant of Koma, jumped into his lap. She purred and kneaded his leg with her paws. He stroked her fur gently. Sometimes the smallest creatures teach the biggest lessons, he thought. Sometimes a little cat can change the whole galaxy. And sometimes the best way to overcome fear is simply to love something that others think you should hate. That was Koma's gift to the galaxy. Not her hunting skills or her bravery, but her capacity to love and be loved. That was the lesson that echoed across the stars, growing stronger with each passing generation.